There's a huge misconception about investing £100,000. It's not the same as 50 or 75k because once you hit 100k, you get access to different strategies that most people don't actually know about. And in this video, I'm going to break down the strategy that I use to make a 100k stretch 3 times further and exactly how I would invest my money in 2025 if I was starting out with 100k. But first, it's important for you to understand why 100k is actually different. To explain, let me tell you about Sarah, a real life client from outside London who came to me after making a huge mistake. She had roughly 100k to play with and she thought, brilliant, I can buy a nicer and bigger house near me. And what happened next is pretty typical. She ended up renting out the house at break even, and on some months she actually was spending money out of her own pocket to cover the mortgage payments. So it's not exactly this portfolio building asset that she thought she was buying. Now the reason this happened is because Sarah assumed that more money equals bigger property and more expensive area. And sometimes this can work, but it often means that you end up leaving so much potential on the table. So let's look at what we did with Sarah. So firstly, we sat down with her and worked out a proper budget. So rather than just taking the £100,000 and assuming that that'll work as our deposit, we split the money into 2 separate pots. Firstly was the purchase pot, secondly was the renovation pot. So we spent about 40k on the deposit, then we had stamp duty, legal fees, broker costs, which came to about £15,000 all in, and we still had £30,000 set aside for the renovation, and we also had £15,000 extra as a bit of a buffer, which, trust me, it always comes in handy to have that extra little buffer there. At the time, a proper refurb cost about £30,000, and we wanted to make sure that we had enough to completely transform a property that we bought. So with £70,000 purchasing and £30,000 refurb, we knew we could get properties around £160,000 to £170,000. However, we were specifically hunting for properties where we could secure a property for that price, but had the potential for that property to be worth £220,000 to £230,000 with a bit of renovation work. And by investing in that way, knowing that you can add value to the property, you control the outcome as opposed to waiting for the market to move. And it really allows you to sweat the asset, as people call it, which is just get the most out of the property as possible. However, an important part of this process is making sure that you have all the numbers absolutely dialed in. So download the deal calculator that I've provided for you in the description so that you can actually use it to work these numbers out for you. So with the budget sorted, the next big question is, where do you actually buy? Most people, especially if they're down south, like Sarah was, kind of get stuck at this point because they take a quick look at properties within a 2-hour drive from where they are and they don't find anything in their price range. And to be honest, quite often they just give up. But if you really want to get the best possible returns, you've got to be open to be looking beyond your local area, especially if you've got a tighter budget and you are based down south. In Sarah's case, after doing our research, we landed on a particular area of South Liverpool for her, and there's a pretty good reason for that. So when you're looking at a new area, you need to do your homework. So we looked at things like crime rates in the different postcodes, we looked at school ratings in the area, transport links, what the house prices have been doing over the past 5 years as well, and most importantly, where are the big developers putting their cash? And we used websites like Property Data to check the capital growth patterns across the different areas, because while we can't predict the future, we can spot areas that are on the up, and South Liverpool ticked all of those boxes. So the numbers made sense, but more importantly, we could see major development happening there. The government was putting money into the area, the rental demand was strong. In other words, if other people are investing in the area, it's generally a good sign that you can too. So now that we'd chosen our area, it was time to actually find the right property. And we found a place that was on the market for about £180,000, but using Rightmove, we could see that similar properties, once they were finished, once they'd been renovated, were selling for about £220,000 to £230,000, which is exactly the kind of property that we were looking for, something that other buyers might walk away from, but we could see the potential in growing its value. So we went in, we put our offer in of £160,000, knowing that with our £30,000 renovation, we would be ready to go. And just to actually break it down for you, here's how the numbers actually work. So the purchase price was £160,000. All our fees and costs were about £10,000. The renovation budget was about £30,000. So all in, we were looking at about 200k. And after the renovation was done, we had the property revalued at £220,000. So we took a 75% loan to value mortgage. In other words, we were able to refinance the property and pull out £70,000 back from the original deal. So in the end, Sarah was leaving in about £34,500 in that deal. Plus the property was now bringing in £1,300 a month in rent every single month. Let's actually unpack what we actually achieved here. So we started with 100k. We bought one property in a high growth area that's generating £1,300 every single month. And we've managed to pull out £70,000 of our original investment back so that we could go and do it all over again. And if you gave me 100k tomorrow, that is exactly the strategy that I would be using. I'd be looking for rundown houses in an area that had shown solid capital growth over the last 5 years. I'd say about 3% plus on average per annum. And when I say rundown, I mean cosmetic issues, no structural problems. And here's what I'd do. I'd find a property around 150k. I'd spend £20,000 to £40,000 on a proper good cosmetic refurb, focusing on the kitchen, a new bathroom, maybe opening up the living space to get it revalued around 200 to 210, refinancing and pulling some of my money out to then just rinse and repeat and do it all over again. Now, could you do something more complicated with that money, like a small HMO? Yeah, but it would be a pretty small HMO, and until you've got a bigger pot, I'd just keep it simple to start with. Get a good couple of straightforward buy-to-let refurbs under your belt, because an amount like 50k is great, but you've just got one shot. It's like a one-hit wonder. But with 100k, you can buy, add the value, pull some money out and do it again. You could do this like 3 or 4 times before you actually run out of cash. And that's the real power of having 100k to invest. It's not just about buying one property. You could actually build towards an actual proper property portfolio. However, as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you want any of this to work, the figures need to be rock solid. So check out this video next, where I'll walk you through exactly how to analyze a property deal and make sure that it's actually profitable.